So how does one approach an iconic figure that has been talked about and documented, his story in so many different ways, as you just pointed out? How do you attack such an endeavor, Ken Burns?
You know, I remember Shelby Foote said to me when I was working on the Civil War, he said, God is the greatest dramatist, which is a way of saying, and then, and then, and then. So we just literally start at the beginning. Obviously, we're going to do deep research. We're going to read. We're going to try to find, and we did find in database 15,000 photographs, 400 or 500 hours of footage of him, and particularly interviews of him, that some of which have never been seen the light of day since they were originally taken. Home movies and stuff that definitely is from folks' garages that has never been seen before. The families called me up and said, wow, I never saw that picture of him holding me and saying, don't you know your daddy's the baddest in the world? So we feel like we did a good deep dive, and then it's just working with scholars and people to make sure that we can not just animate the boxing story, which is like the collected works of William Shakespeare, but also this journey in faith, just becoming a member of the Nation of Islam. It's not enough just to mention it or describe what it was. It's an ongoing fluid process of a young man finding something that gave some meaning to his life at that point and then maturing with it over the course of his life, where he sort of sheds it in order to embrace the more orthodox, the more, mainstream Islam, which the sect, the Nation of Islam, was. And it's also about the personal life. 4 wives, that means 3 divorces, lots of kids, that means children of divorces, money, all of that sort of stuff. It was an attempt to have a comprehensive, integrated view of the whole of Muhammad Ali. And if you think about it, he touches every single issue of the last half of the 20th century, the role of sports in the United States, the role of a black athlete, the definitions of black masculinity, about the dimensions of the civil rights movement, about faith, about religion, about Islam, about politics, about war. I mean, all of that he touches, and all of those themes are still relevant. So in the end of the day, you have a film, I think, that is about freedom. It's very difficult for a black man in this continent to escape the specific gravity of that circumstance. It's about courage, a young man in his 20s who says he's willing to stand up to machine gun fire rather than go against his faith. We took it as a political statement, but it was a faith statement to not fight in Vietnam. And then, of course, a very difficult topic, one that the FCC, a 4-letter word that the FCC allows you and me to use, but we don't have a very good track record of actually talking about it in depth, which is, this is a story about love. He dies the most beloved person on the planet after being in the 1960s and early 70s seemingly one of the most divisive people, because I say seemingly only because I think it's a lot of what was projected into him rather than what he himself did.
Ken Burns here on the Rich Eisen Show. Muhammad Ali is coming your way to your PBS station starting September 19th, this Sunday at 8 Eastern, a 4-part series. What did you learn about him? Ken?
Everything. I mean, I thought I knew him. My whole life accompanied his, and I watched him. I met him. I just think there's all of these dimensions. There's great humor. There's great pathos. There's great, tension. You could take the first Liston fight, and you could almost, no Hollywood producer would, buy it. Or the Thrilla in Manila, in which he said he was closest to death, or when he wins the championship from Foreman, when most people in his corner are worried that he's going to be killed, he actually destroys Foreman. There's all of that, and then there's the intimate moments where we sort of say, well, in that early period, all he did was brag and make jokes and recite poetry, and I'm so bad I can drown a drink of water and kill a dead tree. When in fact there's several things that we discovered that were so thoughtful and wise that belied his age, belied the job that he was doing, the career that he'd chosen, and we're speaking to sort of big, heavy things, and I'm just stunned at the intimacy of who this guy. He knew early on. He put on boxing gloves, and within a few months he's saying, I'm going to be the greatest, and everybody's going like, yeah, right. You don't have anything. And he was the greatest. Or he'd say stuff like, well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad doesn't want me to box, so I don't need to box. And the guy says, you give up boxing? He goes, yeah, I don't need to box, but I know I'm here for a purpose. And you could see that early on as a young kid. He knew he was put on this earth for something else.
The thing that, really struck me when he passed away, Ken Burns, was the number of people, and I'm not just talking about famous people, peers, or people who covered him, the number of just regular citizens around the globe that posted photographs that they had with him, that he stopped and took photographs and talked to people, and everyone had a story. Honestly, like, it was wild to me how much he got around. It's crazy, Ken.
He
the people's
always
champ.
wanted to give that. I mean, when he says, "I'm pretty as a girl, I'm beautiful, I'm black, I'm beautiful," we think it was a part of an unexpected braggadocio that up until that point, athletes weren't supposed to behave, and certainly black athletes weren't supposed to behave that way. But what he was doing was he was giving permission to people, black people around the United States, but oppressed people everywhere, the permission to feel good about themselves. And so he is on so many continents, Africa, North Africa, Middle East, Asia, South America, as well as here at home, a beloved figure, and Europe as well, a beloved figure. And as David Remnick, the editor of The New Yorker and a biographer of early Clay's life, Eaton just said that, by the time he dies, he's revered almost like a religious figure, like the Buddha. Everybody has that story because he took the time. It wasn't like, okay, we're done with the autograph session. How much did I make? Let's go. It was no pay, just here I am. I will give you until you're satisfied. I met him once. It was the same way. It's just the generosity of spirit. It didn't matter. It was just so pure, and I'm still impressed with what he is. And having said that, Rich, this film doesn't pull any punches about his failings. They're all over and in every single episode, and he becomes aware of them and tries his best at the end of his life to atone. He feels there's a tallying angel, and that the way he's treated women, his unfaithfulness to his wives, the way he cut off Malcolm X so abruptly when ordered to by Elijah Muhammad just before Malcolm X was murdered by the Nation of Islam, and also the way he had treated Joe Frazier by using, as the scholar Todd Boyd said, the language of a white racist about his opponent. He said, this is the ultimate conscious black guy using the language of a white racist. He says something that was a key for me in understanding Ali. He says, I just think in this instance he used his powers for evil instead of good. And I go, oh, that's right. We're making a film about a superhero. That's what this is. This is a superhero in every sense of the word. The Marvel stuff is just, DOA as far as I'm concerned. This is somebody who lived a larger-than-life life that we can all participate in and take what we can from. It's not that, the world had opinions of him. The world changed its opinions of him as he grew, and more importantly, we grew. And I think one of the great gifts of Muhammad Ali is he asked us to be different than we were.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.